Welcome to the Everyone Has a Story podcast. Today, I'm going to start off with one of my favorite quotes from Napoleon Hill. It says, "Time is endless. Your opportunity to use time is temporary. Make the best use of both to achieve success." What does that mean for today? Well, we're going to talk about first impressions. And there's a whole new, idea of what a first impression is today, especially with social media. And that's what we're going to talk about, because I love to think about first impressions, and I love making first impressions, and I love seeing how other people make first impressions. I remember this one time I had this client who was a very, very upscale, high-end luxury spa. And they were just having trouble with morale. They were having trouble with keeping new customers. They were having trouble keeping old existing customers. So they called me in to kind of do some little research. And so I came in, and I'm walking in, and no one knows I'm coming because the owner wanted me to do a little secret shopping while I did this. I walked in, and the first person that I see, the first person that says anything to me literally was Wednesday Addams, the daughter of the Addams family. And I don't know for all of you if you can remember Wednesday Addams, but the poor girl was probably junior high or high school age. She had a frown and a look on her face like she wanted to kill anybody and everything. And this poor girl, that was her. She looked like Wednesday Addams. She had that same mean disposition look to her. And I'm thinking, no one that has any kind of disposable income is going to want to come in and have her be the first person that you see. And then on top of that, when she talked to you, you got the impression that she was sizing you up to see if you're going to be her next kill. I mean, it was just the most unpleasant scenario that you could ever imagine going into a nice luxury spa. And I tell this because when I told this to the client, she said, well, she's not like that in real life. I said, your real life is your reality. Is when I walked in the door, she scared the holy heck out of me, and I wasn't even really there to be a customer. And I said, if I feel that way, I'm sure other people feel that same way too. And this poor owner really did not see that. And how many more times have we made first impressions that we don't even think about, both personally, professionally, and for our business, that we just don't even recognize until you have someone that's outside the realm to really say what needs to be said about this. How does this happen? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And so I have my guest returning, Prerna Pradham. How are you?
Hey, Roger. I'm great. Thank you for having me here again on Everyone Has a Story. It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. So for people that don't remember Prerna, she's an executive coach, trainer, and she's an image consultant. So she's the ideal person to help me discuss first impressions. And that's what we're going to do today. So Prerna, why don't you do a quick little deeper introduction before we get into our podcast for the audience?
Yeah, thank you, Roger. Like you said, that I'm an executive coach. I work on personal development for people. I'm also a trainer and an image consultant. So putting all the three together, I work on giving a holistic experience to my clients. I work with mid to senior level, managers who want to work on their executive presence. Now, when we talk of executive presence, everything comes in there. First impressions, communication skills, leadership skills, right? Appearance management. The other category of people I've recently started working with are women who are on sabbatical, who've been on a sabbatical, because I've been on one myself. And they find it very daunting to get back to the workforce. So that's where I'm working with them. And I also work with university and college students, helping them with their business etiquette and skills, soft skills, and preparing them to get back to work. get to work, campus to corporate kind of. So yeah,
Nice. Well,
that's about me.
well, welcome back. And so I'm sure with everything that you've done, you have gone into a meeting or gone into a place of business where you have met your version of Wednesday Addams as well. So let's
Yeah.
talk about those first impressions. So from an executive coach and an image consultant's point of view, what is the true definition of today's first impression?
Yeah, thank you, Roger. And the story and your experience that you gave was so relevant. So I've gone through that many times in my life, and later on I will share my own personal experience, the feedback I got. Right. So when we come to first impressions, I'm sure all of us must have, heard this quote, "Don't judge a book by its cover." Right, Roger? How many times in our life have we heard this? We often use this phrase, metaphorical phrase, to maybe to teach someone or tell someone not to be judgmental. However, when you walk into a bookstore to purchase a book, what do you expect to see? How should a book look like, right? Now, if it did not matter, why do authors hire designers to design the cover of the book? So the cover of the book creates an instant impression. It's the most important, I feel, the most important marketing tool to connect with the audience, making them interested of what's inside the book. It also gives us at a glance an idea of what the book is all about. Now, if the cover of the book fails to impress us, we might not buy it, right? So similarly, first impressions are impressions that a stranger forms of us within the first 3 to 7 seconds of meeting us. Sounds quite unfair, right?
It does.
Yeah. So, often, yes, Roger.
I was just going to say, when you're talking about judging a book by its cover in those first 2 to 7 seconds, I know throughout my whole life that most strangers that I meet, the first thing they say within those first 2 to 7 seconds is that, "My God, Roger, you have the perfect face for radio." And I didn't know really how to take that at first. And as I got older, I realized that they judged this book the wrong way.
Yeah.
So why today? Why is it important to really make a good first impression? Why is it more important today, do you think?
Yes, so I was coming to that. Often subconsciously, we make a snap judgment about a person within the first few moments, right? It is no secret that people often judge each other based on immediate intuitions. And I guess it's natural for human beings to quickly assess whether another person is a threat. So you can call it a survival instinct, and psychologists call it thin slicing. So by thin slicing, we mean we take a few cues and make it the whole at an unconscious level. And it happens all very fast. Right? So there's a whole lot of study and research behind first impressions. In fact, Dave Kenny, a psychologist at the University of Connecticut, was one of the first researchers to look into the accuracy of first impressions. Like you just said, that it might not have been the most accurate first impression that someone got of you. Right? A series of experiments that he conducted suggested that very often first impressions have a surprising degree of validity. Remember the times like when you might have met a person and said that, "I don't know why, but I'm not just comfortable being around this person," right? Or he came across as a bit rude. Or it could be like, I think I didn't get to talk to her, but she seems to be like a pleasant person to be around. So how do you come with this kind of impression if you have not even interacted with that person? So having first impression is involuntary. It just happens. While, and as human beings, we do that every day, right? But while being judgmental is intentional. So by saying that first impressions are lasting impressions, the intention here, my intention here is not to tell people that you should be judgmental of another, but to tell people that we need to be aware that we might be judged by the first impressions we make on others, and that we should try to make a positive one so that it sets a tone for the future interaction. So, why should it matter today is that because they are largely subconscious, first impressions can be very persistent. It is even more important in these highly competitive times, as having a good first impression can often set you apart from others. When you started, you also spoke about social media, Roger. So in a digital world, the first impressions can make or break a brand. Now, over the years, the world has dramatically changed, and so whether you like it or not, your digital presence is out there and people can find your footprints. So whether you are an individual, a startup, or a large brand, we all understand the need to create a first good impression. Here, I would also like to speak a little bit about the Mehrabian rule. Have you heard of that? I'm sure you have, Roger.
Yes.
Yeah, so Albert Mehrabian, who's the professor emeritus of psychology, he came up with this Mehrabian rule where, he says 7, 38, 55, right? So these numbers are used to quantify the impact of non-verbal communication. So 55% of what we see, first impressions are visual, of what we see immediately, right? 38% is the way we hear the words, vocal. Now, when we say vocal, it's the tone, the pitch, the speed, all of that. And 7% is the actual words we hear. So the first thing what we do when we create first impression is we pick up the visual cues. Right? So studies have found, not all first impressions would be correct, but our first impressions are more or less 76% accurate. And that's not me saying. Those are the studies and researches done by psychologists. Right? So first impressions last well beyond that moment. And it might take a lot of meetings, follow-ups, and trust building before this image can be reversed. Therefore, I can safely say that making a good first impression is so much better than having to overcome a bad impression. Don't you think so?
Absolutely. So let's go to the workplace. Like my example was right as I walked in the door. I have another example where I took over this club in downtown Pittsburgh, and they needed really help, a lot of help with their marketing. And so at the time we were going to do some print ads. And so I must have called up probably 10 or 15 different marketing agencies and print agencies to come meet with me so I can show them what my plan was, so I could have some idea what my budget's going to be to help get this advertising and marketing campaign started. And so I reached out and I had everybody that I talked to, call me back when you have all your information that you need. and then we'll set up a time to talk. Well, about a day or two later, I get a call from the front desk to my office saying that some guy was here to present to me his strategy that I could use. And I looked and I'm thinking, okay, I only have a couple of minutes. I wish the guy would have called up to set up an appointment so I don't have to be rushed on this, because this is very important. So I walked down and the guy just started bombarding me with just everything that he had to offer me. And I said, I don't have this kind of time. I said, let's schedule a time. I prefer to set up a time to schedule so my mind is free and clear. And he looked at me and he said, how busy can you be? You manage a health club. And I'm thinking to myself, really? You're going to say that to someone that you're trying to sell your services to? And so I took his card. I told him I'd get back to him, which I did just by saying, thank you, but I found someone else I'm going to use. But I could not believe that a sales guy who wanted my business had the audacity to say to me, how busy can you be? You only manage a health club. And you're right. The guy came across, he looked very professional, but as soon as he opened his mouth, I could just tell that he and I will never ever work together. And so tell me, how does first impressions really apply to the business, the organization? I've shared two of my examples, but really in the bigger picture, how does it really apply to the company itself?
Yeah, so the example that you gave, right? It's so relevant. And so many times it happens that you walk into a business, you walk into a store, and if the salesperson there gives you a smile and looks the part and comes to help you, you can just see by the body language, right? What does it tell about that person? You would want to interact, you would want to move ahead with the sale. But again, if a salesperson was disheveled and didn't even smile at you or seemed disinterested in the sale, then what would you do? You wouldn't want to do business with that person. So in a market of competition, you would just get out of the store and go to another competitor, someone who's more approachable, right? So every business owner or organization knows the importance of how first impressions you give a customer or client, that sets the tone for all your future business relationships. But you may not know just how little time you have to actually make one.
So
yes.
So why isn't more organizations though taking the time to really assess that first impression? Because a high-end spa should never hire Wednesday Addams, but they still did. The company, this printing company who's hiring this guy to build their business through sales, what did they see that I didn't see to hire this guy that was going to say things that are very, very inappropriate? So, are the people doing the hiring, are they not putting into the context of their first impressions, or are they not even thinking that? They're so busy trying to get through their day that they don't take the time to really assess what their first impression was. They want to hire someone very quickly. Okay, this person's living, breathing, they can come to work, they want to accept my pay, so I'm going to hire the person right on the spot and not take into consideration what other people might see as a first impression.
Yeah, I'm sure, because they might be in a pressure to hire someone to fill up that post quickly. And many times also the HR, instead of going through what, that person, the employee, is going to be for a customer, a client, they just maybe they go through the CV and they look at their credentials, they look at how they sit for the interview or whatever. But I think now more and more companies are assessing on all these aspects also, the soft skills and the emotional intelligence, being empathetic, right? So they are doing that, because I know of many good companies who take these employees through the assessment process. So here again, when we come back to the business, how it affects the business, so there isn't, like you said, you went there and you said that I'm not going to do business with this person. This is going to be the last interaction, right? So there isn't enough time to make up for the initial blunders. What has happened, and that has stayed with you. So the external stakeholders decide within the first interaction whether they want to do business with you or not. So if the first interaction does not go well, it might take a lot of meetings and trust building before that image could be reversed. But that can happen only if you get a second opportunity. And in most times, we do not get that second opportunity, right? So with the first impression, also a business can share their ideas and vision to a more receptive audience and willing audience. If the first interaction does not go well, then the external stakeholders, your clients, customers are already closed. So I think first impression helps to establish and build credibility.
So,
and also goes without saying, like what you said, attract new customers, clients, and potential employees.
exactly. So put your coaching hat on now and give us some ideas of really what are some realistic solutions that organizations, hiring managers can do to help them hire the right people, help train the staff to make sure that every interaction is going to be a more positive, ideal first impression.
So when they hire, first of all, the individuals, because every individual is a brand. Now, first impressions and personal branding goes together. It goes side by side. Right? So when we talk of personal branding, what is it? And every personal branding is all about who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in, your values. So at the point of hiring, I think the organizations and HR, they should look into who that individual is. And as individual, we are the brand. Now, if that person is supposed to represent your business, then is he or she fitting the bill to, to put him or her in front of your clients or your customer? Are they going to perceive him or her in the way that you think the customer, the client should? Literally putting yourself in the shoe of a customer and a client and see before hiring, if I was a customer and a client, how would I feel? So because like you said, it's the target audience. How how we perceive about ourselves and how we show ourselves to the target audience. So when we build our personal brand, I think we need to be focused on how customers and how our clients are going to perceive us online or in business meetings, networking events, conferences or one-on-one conversations. Now, we know that we only have one chance to establish a strong first impression. So with a great start, you can strengthen your relationships and make future interactions go smoothly. I would say, like, before the HR hires someone, so they should think, be the type of person you want to meet.
So let's now go back to the topic of social media. You know, back in the day, before social media, a first impression was made at the very first impression, the first introduction. But now somebody can give me a name and I can Google search that name and go to LinkedIn, go to anywhere, and I can check who they are, what they do, what they look like, everything before I even have that very first conversation with that person. So what do individuals, professional individuals, need to be aware of to make sure that the possible next first impression or introduction is going to be more positive?
Yeah, so like we said, like we are in a digital world. So even before you actually go to meet, before you actually have a one-on-one meeting, you are already up on the stage. Right? So the person, whoever is going to interview you or your client or your customer, is already checking you online. Is this person, in sync with what he or she says he is? So the footprints are there. So I think it is very important now to be tech savvy, one thing. And the other is how you are showing yourself to your target audience. Now, if it is your personal Facebook or your Instagram, no one cares because that's your personal account. But if it is a business platform like a LinkedIn, then you need to look the part. What are your roles and goals? You need to walk the talk right there. Right? So one glance at your profile should tell you that, okay, this person is a business development person, or this person, like, he is into media or whatever the industry might be. And what is the content also that you are engaging with? So that tells you, like, if you go to someone's professional platform, a social media, LinkedIn, say, profile, and you just see, okay, this person is supposed to be a coach. So what kind of material is he or she engaging with? So now it's become very critical. You are in that radar already, right? So people are already seeing, are you walking the talk or not? So I think it's very important to be there professionally on social media, to be what you represent for your target audience. Your LinkedIn profile, now when I see, like, many profiles, professional ones, right? So it all starts with even the profile picture that you have on LinkedIn. Is that picture professional? Is it unprofessional? How should it be? So I recently was doing one coaching, and I kind of had to, tell him that do change your profile picture, because that is not in line with your work. That does not tell me that he is so and so, and this is what he does. So it's quite important to be aligned to that.
This has been great advice. Prerna, I can't thank you enough for being my guest today and your insights, especially on helping these individuals make better first impressions, and as the receiver of the first impression, how to not be so biased ahead of time before you make that final decision on that impression. Do you have any closing thoughts for us before we sign off?
Yes, I wanted to speak about other important issues when it comes to first impression, because Many times we think that first impression is what it is outside, superficially, right? So it is all about, having a good smile and positive body language, eye contact and everything. Now that is there. But, every individual should be aware that there is an inner image within us. Inner image or a self-image, we need to be aware. Now, what is the inner image? The inner image is the personal view we have of ourselves. It is a mental picture, a self-portrait. And it is very interesting to note here that the self-image is formed really early on in life. And it is a product of, it is a product of learning and experience. And many people contribute to that self-image that we have of ourselves. It could be your parents, it could be your classmates, it could be your colleagues, right? It could be relatives who maybe have contributed to that self-image or that self-portrait we have of ourselves. Now, it could be positive as well as negative, the self-image. And if it is a positive one, positive or negative, it does, we are conditioned by previous experiences, circumstances, situations. Now, it is important that we know what is that inner voice telling us. We tend to be very judgmental. So the self-esteem and self-confidence, self-esteem is how we value and perceive ourselves. And self-confidence is an attitude about your skills and abilities. So how we perceive ourselves, that has a direct, link to our first impression. So until and unless your inner, the self-criticism, self-judgment, right? So until and unless that is positive, you have a positive self-esteem, it can go on to make the first impressions also positive. But if there is an inner voice, the judgmental voice, inner voice telling you that you are this, you are that, so it's going to show on the outside. It's going to manifest. So we need to be aware of those inner voices and we can see, and being aware of self-criticisms can help determine our own current self-image and evaluate if we need to improve on it and the ways to do it. So I think that is very important. Before you show on the outside, it is important to know what's on the inside.
Yeah, I love that full picture context. Prerna, thank you again for being my guest speaker today, and your insight is very, very needed today. So thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you so much.
My podcast wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for my sponsors and my great supporters. So let me take this opportunity to thank each and every one of them. First of all, I want to thank Rebecca at Custom Bookkeeping and Accounting, delivering trustworthy bookkeeping services since 2003. Dave and Dara at Virtues Matter, making this world a much happier place to be with their Virtues Card app, coaching and workshops. Stephen at Buller Accounting, giving business owners depth and insight to their numbers. Eric and his team at Ivy Cat Web Design, the real superheroes of web development and design. Jennifer and Jean at the Seavers Real Estate Team, serving Pierce and Kitsap counties with their home buying and selling needs. Maury at the Maury Method, the world's only brainwave entrainment engineer, helping everyone have more clarity, less stress, and overall better brain health. Priya at Pivot My Profit, helping individuals and businesses have better control of their finances and more money at the end of their day. Melissa at the Soul Vibe Energy High, the queen of the aha moments, helping individuals find those holes in their cups, repair the hole, and gain back their positive energy. And finally, Rick at West Sound Recording. You talk, they do all the rest. Thank you, Rick, for all your efforts with the production and editing of my podcast.